long ago and far away, in enchanted lands across the seas, lived kings and queens, princes and princesses, good fairies and wicked witches, ferocious giants and gentle dwarfs. Their adventures and stories have been told for hundreds of years. Open the pages and listen to the words, and you too can join the magical world of Once Upon a Time.
The Wild Swans. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 11 sons and 1 daughter, and he loved them all very much. And everyone in the kingdom knew that they were princes, because they all wore golden crowns on their heads. Their sister Elise was a beautiful princess, and they all lived happily in the palace together, until one day their mother, the queen, died. Their lives changed completely when their father married a wicked queen. She was not at all kind to the poor children. Even at her wedding feast, she didn't allow them to eat any cake. All they were given was a cupful of sand. "You little fools, you'll have to pretend you're having a party," said the new queen. The king's children had never felt so unhappy. Instead of playing happily with their lovely toys and beautiful books, they just moped around the palace all day, looking thoroughly miserable. Since the wicked queen had come to live in the palace, nobody had laughed and nobody had smiled. The wicked queen realized that the king was very fond of his children, and soon became very jealous. And because the king loved Elise best of all, and lavished beautiful gifts on her, the queen sent her away to a farm to live the life of a poor peasant girl. The king was so sad when his daughter was sent away that he transferred his affection to his sons. But the wicked queen felt left out. "Fly away and look after yourselves," she told the princes, as she turned them into 11 beautiful swans. With a sad and strange cry, the swans flew out of the palace windows and into the woods. And although nobody in the kingdom could change the spell, everybody knew that the swans were really princes, because they wore tiny golden crowns on their heads. The king was so sad when he saw that his sons had been turned into swans that he spent many hours wandering the corridors of the palace. He wept openly, and no one could console him. "Please, please let my daughter come back to the palace," he repeated, over and over again, until the queen finally gave in and allowed her to return home. But it came as a great shock to the queen when Elise did return. Over the years, she had grown into a beautiful young woman. The queen thought about turning her into a wild swan too, but she knew that the king wouldn't let her get away with this. So early one morning, the queen took 3 toads and told each of them what they must do. To the first she said, "When Elise has her morning bath, sit on top of her head so that she becomes as lazy as you." To the second toad she said, "Sit on her forehead so that she becomes as ugly as you." And finally, to the third one she said, "Stay close to her heart so her head becomes full of wicked thoughts." So when Elise stepped into her morning bath, the toads did exactly what the wicked queen had told them. But the Queen's magic had no effect on the lovely Elise, and when the Queen saw this, she was so angry that she smeared Elise's face with smelly ointment and hid her silver hairbrush, so her hair became matted. Elise looked so ugly that her father didn't recognize her. Elise was so unhappy that she felt she could no longer live in the palace, so she crept out into the woods and sat with her head in her hands. She had no idea where to go next, but she knew that she had to look for her brothers. By nightfall she had wandered so far that she had to rest on a bed of moss in the woods, and as she slept she dreamt that her brothers were flying above her. But the next morning when she awoke, she was all alone and realized it was just a dream. So Elise walked on through the woods looking for food and drink, and soon she came to a pond. She leant over it and cupped her hands to take a drink. But when she saw her reflection, she leapt back in horror. "Oh, how ugly I have become," she said to herself. But Elise had no need to worry, for as soon as she washed her face in the water, she became lovely again. Elise felt much happier now, but she hadn't forgotten why she was in the woods, so she carried on searching for her brothers. Elise then went for a little swim, and while she was swimming, she saw an old woman carrying a basket of fruit she had gathered. "Tell me," said Elise, "have you seen 11 princes riding through this wood?"
No,
said the old woman.
but yesterday I saw 11 swans wearing golden crowns swimming in the river."
"Oh, please take me to the place where you saw them," cried Elise. So the old woman followed a trail of feathers and took Elise to the exact spot where she had seen the swans swimming. Just before sunset, Elise saw 11 wild swans wearing golden crowns flying towards the land. For a while they hovered in the air, so Elise climbed onto a tall rock to get a closer look at the beautiful creatures. Then, as the sun sank below the horizon, their feathers fell off and they turned into 11 handsome princes. And when the beautiful princess saw her brothers, she cried out to them, "Oh, my brothers, how happy I am to see you again!" And each prince hugged Elise in turn, and there was much laughter and happiness. But the happiness was tinged with sadness. "As long as the sun is in the sky, we all fly as swans," said her eldest brother. "It is only when the sun goes down we turn into princes again." "Oh, how I wish the sun would never rise," sobbed Elise when she heard this. And for most of the night, Elise and her brothers talked about old and happy times at the palace, until Elise was exhausted with talking and fell asleep. At sunrise, Elise was woken by the sound of the swans flapping their wings, and before she had opened her eyes, the swans had flown far into the distance. Elise waited all day for the swans to return, and at sunset, just as expected, she heard the familiar flapping sound. Once again, the swans shed their feathers and turned into princes. And as soon as they had become human, the eldest one turned to Elise and said, "Tomorrow we will be flying away and not returning for a whole year, but we don't want to leave you behind. Will you come with us?" "Oh, yes, take me across the sea with you," said Elise. So Elise and all her brothers spent the rest of the night making a net by plaiting seaweed. By sunrise, the net was ready, so Elise lay down on it, and a few moments later, her brothers turned into swans again. They carried Elise away in the net. High into the sky they flew, until they were so high up that a ship on the water looked like a seagull.
It's time to turn over to side 2.